So my topic of today's topic is developing this disease and pest resistance, disease and pest resistant crops for a sustainable environment. So I work at CSR NCL. Yeah. So as you know that this is a kind of introductory slide. So we know that we need to protect our environment because we live on that, and then like our whole life depends on this earth. And then we know that we have been not doing very good say justice to our planet, and we really need to kind of develop some certain facilities or change our facilities so that not only us but our next future generations can survive. As you know, but we have our population is increasing very rapidly, and then we need to devise the methods like to feed up this large population. So we need to grow the crops on a large scale, and then we are also actually practicing certain practices which are not very sustainable or not very good. So that's why actually we need to use some sustainable agricultural practices so that we can increase the production to feed this population. Plus, we should also get the continued growth. So as you know that the agriculture is the world's largest industry and it employs millions of people directly or indirectly. However, the intensive agriculture also has an enormous environmental footprint. So that is because of the say chemicals that we use in the agriculture, such as like various pesticide, herbicides, etc. And even say we can use like a lot of irrigation we use, the fertilizers are used. All of these are causing heavy toll on the environment. So it actually contributes to the climate change, because if you talk about the agriculture at the world level, then it can contribute to the climate change, water scarcity, land degradation, etc. So, actually agriculture causes environmental changes and it also gets affected by these changes. So it is both. So it can both cause climate change and we also get affected with that. So this is because the demand for food and the agriculture commodities has been increasing due to the rising population, and also agriculture has a deep impact on this world economy as well as biodiversity. So then, as I said, that there are some certain unsustainable practices which have serious impact on the people and the environment. So, however, sustainable agriculture can preserve and restore the critical habitats or improve food nutrition, soil health, etc. So we need to the need for sustainable resource management is very high. So then, how do we sustain the yields? Because the world's population is growing rapidly, and then it is expected by that in the next 30 years it will go to more than say nearly 10 billion. So it's a huge population, and then that population needs to be fed. So how do we feed that? So not only this, there is a large challenge because the agriculture area per person is rapidly decreasing. So I could get this graph only for till 2000, but you can get the easily know that it is decreasing rapidly, and the population is increasing on one hand, and this inland area is decreasing rapidly. So there is an intense pressure to increase the production from a rapidly diminishing area. So again, there are challenges such as due to the climate change, there has been like increase in the biotic and abiotic stresses such as high temperature, drought, salinity, and there are biotic stresses such as pathogens, insects, which can cause these damages to the crop, and then they can also reduce the productivity as well as quality of the produce. So sometimes, although it's produced, but it's not able to it is not fit for the human consumption. So these are so many challenges are there. So then, how do we get rid of those? So there are actually several of the approaches. So for the pest as well as disease management. So there are approaches such as host plant resistance, cultural methods, biological methods, behavioral, etc. And it's also chemical. So IPM or IDM does not mean that we should not use chemicals. Chemicals are also required; they can be used, but they should be used as a last choice. So because before that, we should use other approaches. So in our case, actually, we are focusing on the host plant resistance. So we want to develop certain varieties or identify the genes to which are host plant. So we work on agriculture biotechnology, and there are like few crops. I'll be talking only about few cases. So in case of chickpea work, so we know that's one of the most important legume in India. But then it has got there is a disease called wilt or fusarium wilt. So that kills the population rapidly. So you can see in this field on the right hand side, we can see that most of the varieties which are grown in this field, they are susceptible to wilt, and they die within just 2 to 3 weeks. So in 2 to 3 weeks, the entire field is lost, entire crop is lost. However, if you can grow resistant varieties, then they have almost no effect, and the resistant varieties can produce a yield. So that we developed those. So first we wanted to understand. First we had to understand what is this wilt and what it does. So we use. So in this case, like it is, this cartoon shows that how the pathogen actually goes inside the plant. So actually, these are the yellow color ones are the say pathogen hyphae. So this is a root pathogen. So it enters the plant through the roots. So it goes like this, and then there are like in case of susceptible plants, as you can see, the pathogen grows inside, and then this completely actually blocks these xylem vessels, and because of which although there is a water, there may be water in the soil, but the water plus nutrients, they do not reach the shoot as well as leaves, and because of which the plant dies. Whereas in case of susceptible plants or susceptible varieties, the fungus, so it's actually fungal disease. So when it grows, there are like this plant produces certain sugars or certain other metabolites which blocks the further spread of the virus, and because of which not virus, it's a fungus. So because of which the fungus is restricted, and the plant will survive. So here we have done the histological studies, and then we could see that in case of the susceptible varieties, as you can see, in this case the xylem vessel is getting completely blocked. So this is in the susceptible and variety which is inoculated with the pathogen. Whereas in case of resistant variety, there is lignin deposition is there, but then still there is a these xylem vessels are open. In case of control, you will see that there is almost like no disease. So how this pathogen is controlled? So we can use the chemical fungicides, but these are hazardous to the environment, and there is also problem of resistance. So after few we can say months, or like after few years, there is the pathogen, or like equally insects also, they become resistant, and it's also expensive. Secondly, in our case, like this is a wilt pathogen, which is a soil worm, so we have to use a soil fumigation, which is very expensive. So alternatively, we can use certain control agents or certain alternatives. However, these are not not consistent. Then we can actually develop say disease-resistant varieties, and this can also be used by classical breeding methods, or we can also use the molecular approaches such as biotechnological approaches, and we can say develop the identify the resistant genes and breed for resistance. So if you use these approaches, then we can use the resistant varieties. So as I shown in one of the field photograph, if we develop the resistant varieties, then we don't need chemical fungicides, we don't need any biocontrol agents, or we don't need any soil fumigation. So all of these can be we don't have to bother if you develop the resistant varieties. However, it is not that easy, and then we need to perform elaborate studies to identify the resistant genes, or to identify how to transfer them, how to develop the varieties. So in our lab, we are using various approaches such as genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics, metabolomics. I am sure that the students would definitely know about these approaches, or they would have even studied in their classes. So we use all of these approaches at one or the other time to identify the resistant genes and to develop the resistant varieties. So I just quickly try to explain how would we do. So we first grow the say chickpea or any other crop in the greenhouse conditions, and then we inoculate them with the pathogen, and then we collect the tissues at different time points, as you can see here, and that collected tissue is actually analyzed using different approaches such as transcriptomics, proteomics, and metabolism approaches. So because of the time constraints, I am not going into the details, and I am sure that the students would definitely know or would have studied about these approaches. So I'm not going into the details. So I just come to the summary of the work. So what we identified in this case, like there are like when there is a pathogen is there, so it causes a lot of like changes in the metabolism of the plant, and that results into the amino acids. These are reduced in case of the, as you can see in the susceptible varieties. So they are reducing, whereas certain flavonoids are increased in the resistant varieties. So there is a decrease in amino acids and sugars in the susceptible varieties, and there is an increase in flavonoids, or there is some antifungal compounds in case of resistant varieties. So likewise, we identified those. Plus, we also identified several genes, metabolites, and pathways, and those are mapped onto these various, say, lignin metabolism or phytolysine metabolism, so various pathways that we have mapped. And you can see that many of the cases, so all these small you can see these are called as this like some gene expression data, protein expression data. So you can see here, these are all small ones. So these are ones. So these are our genes that we have identified. So likewise, we can identify the genes, and then we can use those genes to develop the resistant varieties. So this is another disease on wheat that we work on. So that is caused by another fungal pathogen called this bipolaris sericea. So it is both the foliar pathogen, that means it can spread through the air and also through the seed. And it is, you can see that on a large area, like the world over, it is being spread, and even in India, there have been large areas where it has been spreading. So this is the life cycle of the pathogen. It is both seed-borne as well as airborne pathogen. So in this case, actually, we have done other studies also, but we also identified, like suppose there is only one chemical that is called propiconazole. So that chemical is only, or it's a fungicide that is used to control the disease. So we thought that if the pathogen becomes resistant to the disease, then what? There is no other alternative chemical. So we perform the studies, and then we are trying to identify a new mechanism through which the new fungicides can be developed. So as I said that IPM or the IDM, it does not mean that we cannot use chemicals. So we can use the chemicals, but they should be at as a like a smaller amounts. So those fungicide drugs we are used, and then we are actually elucidated the pathway of how the disease resistance occurs in the pathogens. So that pathway were elucidated, and we also performed the laboratory experiments, and we identified several genes which are actually which show responses to the particular pathogen as well as diseases. So again, these are the several genes. I'm not going into the details. So now recently we are doing one approach, which are with these small molecules called as microRNAs, and in this case these are very small molecules of 18 to 20 nucleotides, and these, what we found out that these molecules, they can be transferred to from plant, they can be transferred to the fungi, and from fungi they can transfer to the plant. So what our hypothesis is that the fungal microRNAs, they are very small molecules, they can be transferred to the plant, and then they actually you can say they act on the different genes of plant, and plant different genes, and then that results into the susceptibility. Whereas there are plant microRNAs, they can target the fungal virulence genes, and then in that case there will be resistance. So same approach also works on the insect as well. So we are trying to develop these new technologies for developing plants which are resistant to the fungi as well as for the insect. So these are very specific, and they can act only on the target insect. So suppose if we use a fungicide or a pesticide, then we know that even the beneficial microbes or beneficial insects, they also get killed. But with this technology, they are very specific and can specifically target only the target species. So we are also working on the plant and insect interactions. So as you, in case of this cotton bollworm or some of the insect that we have heard, that we are now using these cry genes, and presently almost like 95% of the cotton is transgenic cotton, and we are using the cry genes. So what the cry genes do, they actually they produce a toxin, cryotoxin, and then that actually kills the insects. Whereas, so if you kill the insect or any other, say, pathogen, then there is an increased pressure on the increased selection pressure, and eventually there is a development of the resistance. So in this case, what in our lab we are doing an approach, we are using an approach called protease inhibitor. So as the name says, it is inhibiting. So it's we are trying to inhibit the growth of the pathogen, and we are not trying to kill the pathogen. So in this case, what we have found, like there have been several studies, and we identified some of the protease inhibitors from the crop plants, which we regularly eat, and once they go into the gut of the insect, then you can see that these are the control insects, and these are the smaller one, like lower part of the figure shows that these are the insects which have been fed on these protease inhibitors, and you can see that there is a large reduction on the growth as well as growth of pathogen. So we have identified that it also results in the increased mortality, and compared to the control, there is a large, almost like more than, almost like 10% survival. So over the several you can say several days. So there is a large reduction. So but this does not kill instantly, just like the chemicals do. So it increases the it inhibits the growth as well as pupation of the insect, and then whichever insects which come out of the pupa, even they are defective, and then they also get killed. And then we are also developing a biological control method, such as this. There is a fungus called Metarhizium. So it can actually affect it can attack the insects, and it can cause like disease. And you can see that in this case the insect is almost killed, and there is a this fungal growth is there. So this is again environmental friendly approach which is used for this for this approach. Now this is I think last experimental slide. So then there is a third case, like we are working on this salt tolerance, because as I say that the salinity also increasing world over. So we identified a plant. So this grows on the seashores. So and then you can see that the sea water is coming up. So that means when it is growing almost in the sea, next to the sea. So it's eventually then that means it must have a salt tolerance mechanism. So we got the plants to Pune, and then we actually performed the various analysis. Then we identified the some genes, and then like what we could get is there are two main genes, that is one dehydrin, another is asparagine synthase, and then these genes could they accumulated at higher concentration, and then now we have isolated the genes and we have transformed them into rice, and then we are currently evaluating that rice for high salt tolerance. So if successful, then a new salinity tolerant lines of rice will be developed. So this is the pathway that we have elucidated, and this AS gene, asparagine synthesis gene, it actually contributes to the accumulation of the asparagine, and which results in the salinity tolerance. So to summarize this, we have the environmental friendly agriculture practices must be followed for the long-term sustainability of the agriculture production, and then the integrated pest management or integrated disease management strategies and organic farming, which are recommended for environmental friendly crop production. However, the best approach to secure crop yields is using the varieties which are resistant to either diseases, pests, or abiotic stresses. So then the modern biotechnological tools can be used to develop the resistant varieties. So these tools, biotechnology tools, does not mean, like when we talk about biotechnology, then everybody thinks of transgenics. So apart from transgenics also, there are like many biotechnological tools are there which can be used in association with the breeders, and we can develop the resistant varieties. So with this, I would like to thank you, and I'm sorry for a short, because of the time constraint, I could not talk more about the details, but you can go on, and you can come to, you can visit our website and see our. So thank you very much.